So anyway, here we are. We are doing that love thing at Seaside based on Greg Bear's work, Real Love. And this morning's title is The Wart King, which I think is a real strange title for a talk, but it is a great story. And it is about just a beautiful kingdom as far as the eyes could see, and beyond the horizons in all directions was this wonderful kingdom. And in this kingdom there was a prince, and this prince's face was filled with warts. And so as a kid growing up, all the kids made fun of him and his face. They would laugh at him, they would ridicule him, and so what he learned at an early age is to remain in his room and unseen. Well, his dad, who was the king, died, and this prince became the king. And so what this prince decreed is, by pain of death, anybody who dares laugh at me, makes a derogatory mark, or says anything that is less than kind, death to them. And so with that decree, he felt comfortable, but not really. You know, for the most part, he still stayed inside unseen. And when he did go out into the world, he put a cloth bag over his head so people could not see him. Made it difficult to see the beautiful kingdom. He tripped and he stumbled. And as this went on for years, he decided to go visit a wise man who lived on the mountaintop not too far away. And so as he stumbled and bumbled his way to that mountain, climbed to the top of the mountain, he found this wise man. And the wise man looked at him and said, "What's going on?" He said, "I've come for you to help make me feel better." And he said, "Well, go ahead and take the bag off your head." And he took the bag off his head and the wise man looked at him and said, "You have warts." And the guy said, "No, I don't," which was a lie. And he said, "Yes, you do." And he put the bag back on his head and said, "How dare you? Death to you. I've come here for you to make me feel better, and you are making me feel horrible." And the wise man said, "Well, then go ahead and call your guards." He said, "But my guards aren't here." And so he got up and he ran off, but he couldn't see well, so he was stumbling, and eventually he slipped and fell off the side of the mountain into the lake, and he was drowning. And the wise man jumped in, he pulled him out of the lake and set him down, pulled the cloth bag off his head because he couldn't breathe. And the guy was just upset and just angry and crying. And he just looked at him and said, "That you're laughing at me." He said, "I'm not laughing at you." He said, "Well, all the boys when I was growing up laughed at me. My dad, he was ashamed of me." And he said, "But I'm not laughing at you now. And I'm not ashamed of you. And that must have really hurt. But know that I'm not one of the boys. And I'm not your dad, and I'm not ashamed of you." He kind of stopped and he looked at him. And he saw that this wise person was seeing him for who he really was. And the guy said, look in the lake. And he looked in the lake and he saw his warts, that he did have them. He said, "I have warts too all over my face." He said, the prince said, and didn't people laugh at you?" He said, "Yes, people laughed at me, and it hurts. I didn't like it. But I found some that didn't laugh at me. And so those are the people I was with. And all of a sudden I became more comfortable with other people." And so the little Wart Prince King said, "You know what? Maybe when I'm around you, I won't wear this bag anymore." And the wise one said, "You know what? Why don't you leave this bag here when you leave?" And he did. And as he went home, he didn't stumble. He could see what a beautiful kingdom he did live in. And as he went home, he found people that did love him, warts and all. And it is through that he began to be stronger inside of himself, and he didn't care about the ones that would laugh at him, and it no longer bothered him. And so what that story is saying, in a sense, is one of the first things you've got to do is be truthful. How often do we live this lie that, "No, I don't have warts. I put this bag over my face, or I wear this facade, or I wear these clothes so you don't really know who I am, so I look like a minister, or I act a certain way because I've learned that if I act a certain way, you'll love me, but if I don't act this kind of way, you're not going to love me." So all of a sudden I begin living a lie. And so if you do accept me, you accept what you see, and what you see is not me. So how could I really be loved if you're loving something that I'm not? So it begins by being truthful. This is me, warts and all. That's the only way you're going to be seen. And when you're seen, then you can be accepted for who you are, not accepted for who you're not. And only as you are truthful will you be seen for who you are, will you be accepted, that you can then begin to really know what love is. Because how can you know love if you're being loved for something you're not? And so the thing with real love is that it's freely given and it's freely received. You know, we talked a lot last week about freely giving, but freely received. That means if you love me, I don't try to love you back. You know, I don't try, how do I reciprocate? You gave me some good Valentine's Day candy. Now, what should I do for you? I could tell you, Callie, but no. No, that's called trading, I guess. And real love is not about trading. It is about giving and only caring about another person's happiness without any concern for yours. It is about allowing yourself to be truthful so you can be seen and accepted for who you really are, not who you're not. And then that love that is shared is real love. You know, one of the things that we bring to this whole equation of real love is the spiritual part of it. The spirituality is that spirit or this life force. You can call it God, but I don't want you to get caught up in an anthropomorphic being or old concepts of God. But what we do believe is that this life force, this first breath, this God expression is everywhere. It is omnipresent. That God is expressing as you, and that's a big word there, as you. God is expressing as you. He who sees me sees the one that sent me. I and the Spirit are one. Spirit is expressing as you. And so the key to healing, the key to transformation is the recognition when you're with another human being that it is Spirit expressing as them. In that moment, it's not trying to love a bunch of warts. It is loving God expressing in this human form. And Spirit is love. Spirit is joy. Spirit is His worthiness. Spirit is magnificent. And so your true nature as God expressing as you is magnificent. God is love. You are love. See, that's another powerful verb, is. The isness of God, the magnificence of God is what you are. What God is, I am. And that is what is expressing as you. And as it expresses as you, it's sometimes easier to love us in our human conditions, warts and all. Sometimes easier to understand the human frailties and the humanhoodness without judgment. And without judgment. Because life happens. It's nature's way of getting even in a sense. Bill Gates said, airplane travel is nature's way of getting you to look like your passport picture. You know? Life happens, and if we can sit without judgment and say, I accept you and I love you because I see you, because you're being honest with me, then what is expressed here can be a real love. But what happens is we get into, okay, I see what I want, this is my scenario, and I'm going after it. And it's, you know, we talked about protecting and getting kind of love. And the story that's used in this chapter is about a man in his house, and I've shared this when I first read the book, but I like it. It's about a man in his house who sees his neighbor walking by on a path with a basket of apples. And the guy thinks, you know what, I'd like some of those apples. You know, I'm kind of hungry. And so he goes out on the path and he talks to his neighbor, goes up to his neighbor, doesn't really talk to him. He says, you know, gosh, I'm really hungry. I haven't had anything to eat. Nobody's going to, really give me anything today. Would you give me some of those apples? Now, I got to tell you, first, it's a lie, because he had breakfast, And the second is that he's not going to eat the rest of the day. Somebody's not going to give him any food. That's just manipulation. That's the getting kind of behavior that will get you some imitation love. And as the guy begins to respond, he jumps in and kind of uses a little bit of guilt. Not that we would ever do that in our life, but, we do know how to inflict it a little bit so we can get what it is we want. So the guy gives him the basket, and the guy gets the basket of apples, and he eats, and, he gets what he wants, but he misses out on the real important part here. That this guy had picked this bushel of apples from his orchard to give him anyway. And now through the manipulation, he didn't get the experience of real love. What he got was like a selling. What he got was an exchange. What he got was what he wanted, but it was through control and it was through manipulation. And he missed out. What he really wanted was unconditional love and being given to. And where in our life are we playing those kind of games that we don't trust, that we need to try to get what it is we want, because I am not trusting life enough? I'll tell you what, one of the Swedish proverbs is, the afternoon knows more than the morning will ever understand. The afternoon knows what the morning will never know. Kind of butchered it a little bit, but you get it. It's like, what's going on right now? You don't know where it's leading, but can I trust that, or do I need to control? I'm going to go take those apples. You know what? I'm going to decree if anybody laughs at me because they're not looking at me the way I think they should be looking at me, they're in big trouble. You know, that is the controlling, that is the manipulation, that is the getting kind of behavior. And what you get is not the real love, it's the imitation stuff. It's not the stuff that feels good. And so when there's something going on in your world that begins to raise some flags within inside your soul, within your being, that does not feel like love, because love is the natural state of being. It is what spirit is, that spirituality that we bring to the equation that is expressing as us, which is spirit. That is the truth of our being. When I'm not feeling that, it's not about changing what's happening out there in the world. What it is about is saying, taking a look at the problem, say, what inside of me needs to be known here? What inside of me doesn't trust that I am worthy or that I am magnificent, that God is what I am expressing in life? What about this that I feel I need to jump in and put the pieces together the way I think they should go and how they should go and when they should go? That's not love. That is living life in fear because you don't trust. And true sense of security comes from knowing your source is spirit. And what spirit does naturally is it gives without condition, without looking for anything to come back into your life. But when things begin to rise, we want out of there. Krishnamurti, one of the great spiritual teachers of our day, or earlier days anyways, he said that fear is to be learned from, not escaped from. So when something's going on, can I sit there and say, what's going on inside of me? What is it that I need to know here? Because anything that needs to be maintained by force, this is Henry Miller, great American author who kind of stretched the edges of our literary expression. He said that anything that needs to be maintained by force is doomed. You're using your power to hold it in place. You're using your power to make something happen. It is not the natural givingness of life itself. It is my expectations. And expectations, you're going to set yourself up for anger. You're going to set yourself up for disappointment. You're going to set yourself up because you want something to be a certain way. And you know what? Can you allow it to be God's way? Can you allow it to be the divine way? Can you allow it to be that what is coming forth in the afternoon as the perfect expression in my life? Or do I need to absolutely control what's going on? Because that which I need to maintain by force, by being a bully, by being the dominant male, alpha male here to make things my way, you begin to force your will upon the environment, the situation, the relationship, and it becomes toxic. All of a sudden, what happens is you may get your way just like he got those apples, but you know what? You don't get what you really wanted, which was that love, that unconditional love that says you're worthy, that you're magnificent, that you're divine, that you are truly an expression of the joy and the love and the expression of God. You know, people killing for peace is a very strange concept here, you know? And because you get what you want through that kind of explosion doesn't mean the people that are left behind are feeling good about what took place. Is it not about having that kingdom of the divine express itself through all things? Why do I need to force my will upon another? Because I've just set myself up for the disappointment. I need to open up and know that it is in a loving environment that things happen. It's not about staying one step away from what it is that I fear. You know, the sign in Indiana pasture said, no trespassing. And if you trespass, make sure you cross this field in 9.8 seconds or less because the bull does it in 10. Yeah. You know. I'm going to try to make things happen. I'm going to try to stay in front of the disaster that is about to happen. We're so busy trying to change what's out there. Did you see the ad and the want ads from the lion tamer? It said lion tamer looking for a tamer lion. You know, it's like in life, we would just like it to be different out there, but when there's something going on, it's just I need to understand, have a greater awareness of what is taking place inside of me, and how can I bring love more to this situation and this environment? If this environment or this relationship is stirring things up, I basically have 4 choices here. 1, change the person. That's doing it. Kind of like the usual choice. I'm going to marry that person. I'm going to hook up. I like most of the stuff, and I'll change the rest. Kind of as if they're an object. You know, I'm going to move the furniture around. An object like a pair of shoes. You know, I will change them, and they'll fit my picture. That's expectations. You're setting yourself up for disaster, disappointment, anger, not a good thing. So that's not really, Greg Bear considers that really a non-choice because you can't change. The only one we can work on is ourselves. So let's throw that, one of those 4 out. So we got three of them. First one is, you live with it and you like it. Pretty wise choice. That means I got to change because if there wasn't a problem, I wouldn't be in this conversation. But there's something inside of me that has to change. So you live with it and you like it, or you live with it and you hate it, or you can leave. I don't think living with it and hating it is a very good option, because if you live with something and you hate it, it's going to eat you up inside. It's going to create disease. When the sweetness of life is gone, you might as well kill yourself. Not literally, but you are literally, actually, because the body will begin to attack itself because there's bitterness or there's hate or there's resentment or there's control or whatever is going on. It's got to fester somewhere, and it'll fester inside you. So I personally would even throw out living with it and hating it, because that's not a good choice. So you basically decide you have got to change or you got to leave. And so what I've come to recognize, if you leave the situation, you get to deal with it somewhere else. It will just have a different face to it. It will be another person bringing forth your same issue. So it's probably best to stick in there if you can and choose to love a little bit more. Attempt to understand what is going on. That person is drowning and they don't get it, or their upbringing, or whatever it is. But I'm going to attempt my best to stick there and like it, because I'm going to bring more love to the environment. Now, if the environment is nasty and violent, get out of there. I'm not a believer that you should submit yourself to any kind of that kind of abuse. That is not okay, in my perspective, in any conceivable way. Only one who appreciates a doormat are those with dirty feet. So don't be one. So basically, the choice is, you got that, is you live with it, you like it, you live with it, you hate it, or you leave. And so what I know right now is that if you bring love and do your best to breathe that presence of God, what emerges in that space is a more loving kind of environment where things become clearer. Your decisions become clearer. You begin to hear what Spirit speaks. What I understand in loving environments, I sure behave better. I'm a lot more expressive, more creative in who I am when there is a loving environment. If I feel I'm being judged and evaluated, and it's like I begin to close down and the nervousness begins to show up. Anybody feel better when you're loved? Well, a few of us. Okay, the rest of you are sadomasochists, and well, that's a different ministry. I think about my son, Trevor, and you talk about creating an atmosphere for unconditional love. It's like he is an expression of pure love, and he is a very honest expression. He doesn't hide, he doesn't play cards, he doesn't wear false facades. He is out there. He doesn't have that ability to really verbally put sentences together. So two-way conversation and exploration and logical, sequential understanding, you do this and this will happen, that doesn't happen. And so in his honest expression, you know just right where he stands. And you can't really guilt him into anything because he's so current, he doesn't understand guilt. You can't even really shame him, even though you say, don't you know how much that hurts? Oh, gosh, I feel bad. You may be able to manipulate him a little bit, but to make a 14-year-old boy cry is not really where you're going. Anyway, so honesty is the best thing. That's the way he expresses. And I think about when we take him to a dentist. To him, going to the dentist makes no logical sense. Why would you want to submit yourself to lie down in a chair with your head up under a bright light with your mouth open, some guy's hands in your mouth, and creating pain inside your head? It makes no sense. So he screams, he hollers, and it will have nothing to do with it. And as he was younger, it could force the issue, but now it's just not worth it. I mean, there may be other approaches, but that doesn't work. He is a very honest expression of life. And so I can choose to be dominant about, you know what, we're having dinner, you get up and you come to the dinner table right now. We eat together as a family right here, right now. Well, and if he doesn't want to get up, then what? Well, I can manipulate, I can control, I can dominate, but that doesn't create love. I can assure you, I get my way, Dad's right. And so I will force him to the table, and I will promise you it will be a horrible experience for all of us. Oh, yeah. So I love him. Say, fine, we're eating. What he will do always is he'll finish whatever he's doing, and he'll come to the table and join us. It's like you can choose love and honoring, or you can force how you think it should be. When he has a way of making a huge mess with his Hot Wheels cars, there's like zillions of them all over the floor. And we got company coming over in a couple hours. Trevor, clean up the room. Won't happen. Trevor, clean up. Typical 14. There's nothing unusual about that. So you say, hey, an hour, people are going to be here. Give you an hour. It doesn't come. And all of a sudden, nothing is happening. And so I have these expectations, which creates a upset or disappointment and what have you. And I can force him. And once again, it does not create a pleasant environment for anyone because he is very honest with his feelings and expressive with it. Or if all of a sudden he doesn't get that in a few minutes, people are going to be here, I can make him do it, force him down there, or I'll just sit down and I start picking them up. Every time he'll sit down there with me and help pick them up. So you get a choice. Is it my way, or do I want to love here? Do I want to trust what the afternoon knows that the morning never even had a clue was going to happen? Am I going to manipulate the situation, get my apples and get it the way I want? Or am I going to just allow real love, unconditional love, the best I can to bring to the environment and say, you know what, okay, I'm going to do what it is I can do here, and that is all I can do. What happens, though, is that we get so busy doing our life. We get so many things going in our world that we don't have that time to calm down and be patient in the moment. It takes a lot of patience to behave like activities you are doing. It's a pretty good question to think about. What are you not doing because of activities that you are doing? There's nothing right or wrong about that, but it's a powerful question to ask yourself. In AA, one of the steps is taking just a radical moral inventory. Maybe we need to take a radical energy inventory within our life and see, how am I spending my energy? What plates am I spinning that I really don't need to be doing? Maybe I need to let it go and have those shoots just fall, wither away, and die. So what I can then bring is a purer, healthier, happy expression of life, that I'm not coming from a place of expectations or a place of anger or a place of disappointment or a place of bullying. I'm coming from that core essence of the Spirit whose nature is to give. That's what nature does. It expresses and it gives. That is what God does. And as we started this conversation this morning, is that you are expressing as God. And what God is, I am. It is the isness of God. It is the beauty, it is the magnificence, it is the grandeur and the glory and the love of your being that you are here to express and to give without conditions. And as you do that, you begin to be fed from within, not without. Not looking from without praise. You're being fed because Spirit is sourcing itself as you. Your mind is an instrument. But who's using it? Is your mind using the mind to do what it wants, to control, to get what it wants? Or is your higher self able to step away from the issues that you think are important and have a broader perspective and remember what's important is to freely give and to receive love in life? But you got to listen. They say about Thomas Edison, you ever seen his pictures? Often, a lot of them, he always has his hand up to his ear. He's listening, right? He's listening. What's he listening to? His brain? I don't think so. That's the mind. The mind is an instrument for something higher. The stories that come from his factory and those that worked for him said that what Thomas Edison would do is they would set them in motion to do an experiment. They would take the experiment as far as they could take it, and then when they got stuck, they would call him over, and story after story, they accounted to him showing up, putting his finger up, and listening to that inner voice, to whatever it is. And then he would tell them what the next step was. The answer was there. Those challenges, those red flags, those moments that you try to change the things outside because you're thinking they're an object. When you remember, I need to look inside myself. Albert Einstein said the problems, or those red flags, was my words this morning, those problems all have something to be known at the center. They all have opportunity. All problems come with opportunities. They all come with something for you. But you got to stop and listen. You got to listen to not your head and not the old beliefs and not the old tapes. See, the value of bringing spirituality into all this real love is you can go through all the old belief processes, which has its value, or you can begin to know the truth is that God as human expression can begin to heal things a lot quicker. Just as that Wart King looked up into the wise man's eyes and saw, said, yes, you have warts. So? And there was a healing. There was a young guy, not young, well, he was ninth grade, freshman in high school. He was walking home on a Friday from school, after school. And he was kind of the school nerd. He was known as the brain of the school, had the big glasses. And he had an unbelievable stack of books as if he had emptied out his locker. And as he was walking home, the other kids would run by. They would laugh at him, call him Poindexter. A kid on the skateboard even bopped him on the back of the head. Just nasty stuff that kids can do. One even just pushed him down and knocked all his books down all over the ground. It was not kind. It was like Wart King real life scenario. On the other side of the street was John. John was one of the players on the football team. John saw what was going on. It felt bad in his gut. It didn't feel right. And after Kyle was his name, when Kyle was knocked down, John crossed the street and just went there and helped him. He really didn't say much, but it was like just looking in his eye and said, wow, guy cares. Thank you. And he helped him pick up his books and just helped him, get home. And nobody else bothered Kyle the rest of the way home because they saw John, the football player, helping out. And through the next few years of school, John would stop and he'd talk with Kyle. It's not as if they were best friends or anything, but, he showed respect, he cared, he connected, jock meets brain. And this brain, it kind of turned out to be like Steve Jobs in the school. People knew him. They didn't think he was that nerdy. You could communicate with him. He was kind of part of the campus and stuff. Well, this real smart kid ended up being the class's valedictorian. And so on graduation day, as a senior, out on the football field, the bleachers filled with the family and the students and the friends, Kyle stepped up to the microphone and said, I want you guys to know that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for John. When I was in ninth grade on one Friday, I had just taken as much bullying and humiliation and ridicule as my little soul could take. And I decided that I was going to commit suicide that weekend. And so I emptied out my locker so my mom would not have to deal with the pain of going to school to empty my locker. And it was that day that John stopped to help me that changed my life. That's the impact that unconditional love can have. John didn't even know that. That's giving without even looking for anything coming back. That is the power that you have in life when you can stop your hurriedness, the plate spinning, and listen. Get out of, people don't like me because of the way I look, and know that what I am is Spirit expressing in all my humanness. That who I am, that who you are is magnificent. It's wonderful. And when you can listen, you can be that spot of unconditional love made manifest. God bless us as we do that.